So that might seem like a loaded question, but there is an answer for it. At least I have an answer for it, and that answer is very interesting. And welcome, dear viewer, to the newest entry in the increasingly loud cacophony of bullshit on this channel, which I am calling, tentatively, Ron Takes Twitter Seriously. One should perhaps not take any endeavor too seriously, but amongst the endeavors it is possible to take seriously, Twitter should be taken the least seriously. It is a hive of scum and villainy. It is designed to embolden the worst instincts that people have. It is a bad place where bad people go to do bad things. But, even in this place, if you look hard enough, you will find once in a blue moon, or once a week? You can do these once a week? Once a week, if you are online, as often as I am, something which I am to understand is medically inadvisable, you will find something worth answering legitimately. If not for its own sake, then for the sake of other people who misunderstand the question. And this question is worth answering. The question comes from Mark Golden, who goes by PlayItMark on Twitter. And the question is very simple. Why aren't the unions striking? I am going to, for the sake of this video, set aside the more obvious answers to that question. The first being that the more powerful unions were broken up in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, and the second that the remaining unions were subsumed into the corporations that they were meant to regulate, and now act as a wing of those corporations instead of a balancing power against them. I'm going to do this because those things are flatly true, and I acknowledge that, but there's a third aspect to this that not enough people quite acknowledge, and it is very complex. So I don't mention this often on my channel because, as you can observe, I am a little baby weakling and I don't want the big scary fascists to come to my house and beat me up, but I live in Springfield, Illinois, which means I live in Illinois, a state which was run for 4 years by an odious motherfucker named Bruce Rauner. Bruce Rauner succeeded Pat Quinn as the governor of Illinois, holding that office for one term between the years of 2014 and 2018. He was recently succeeded by our new governor, J.B. Pritzker. Bruce Rauner is a businessman and a self-made billionaire, owning a string of nursing homes across several states. He was a Republican, and he advocated for policies like lowering taxes, lowering the amount of debt that Illinois was in, and reducing the power of unions in the state. All of which he accomplished by not passing a budget for 3 years. Bruce Rauner's legacy, the thing that he will be remembered for by the people who remember him, is his unrelenting gubernatorial malfeasance. Bruce Rauner operated the state by refusing to allow the state to function. And while the state of Illinois has a new and different governor, one who respects the functions of state and follows through on them, the damage that Bruce Rauner did has not yet been undone. Now, you might be quite reasonably asking yourself, but Ron, there was a federal shutdown for a month and everyone lost their goddamn minds. How could you be shut down for 3 years? How are you still there? And I'll tell you how. The unions in this state moved heaven and earth to keep this state functioning. When it became very clear that Bruce Rauner was not going to pass a budget for months, at the very least, unions sued the state in order to not just get their pay, but to get some amount of funding to necessary programs throughout the state. If it were not for the effort of the unions, Illinois would be a hole in the ground. And Bruce Rauner's tactics are not unique. They mirror the practices of the American Legislative Exchange Council and of Mitch McConnell, both of whom are working to grind the functions of the federal government down to nothing. It needs to be understood that the purpose of a strike is not just to remove labor from a marketplace. That's just what a strike is. What it does is put pressure on a system by making other people pick up slack that they might not have otherwise. And it needs to be understood that that tactic, stretching systems to the point where they break, is exactly the tactic that has been employed by Republicans like Bruce Rauner, like Mitch McConnell, and Republican groups like the American Legislative Exchange Council. So I guess the easiest way to answer that question, at least the easiest way to present the answer that I am trying to propose, is that there are some unions that are not on strike because the Republicans are already on strike. and that strike is devastating our country. There are people who are doing the difficult, tedious work of trying to maintain the systems that operate our country. And they are constantly vilified and they are constantly spat on, but they do good and important work. And if those people stop working, if they go on strike, the country collapses. Best case scenario is the country collapses. The whole world could collapse. We could go back to the Dark Age. And that is my answer to that question. I hope it satisfied. Regular links are in the underbar. That's my Twitter, where I'm not very active because other things have been keeping me busy. That's my Curious Cat, where you can send me harassment, or you can send me actual questions. Although I get much more harassment, and I don't know why I even keep it open. There's my Ko-Fi, if you think any of this is worth sending some money to. I am not going to insist or demand that anyone sends me money. I mean, look at it. I'm doing this as a labor of love. I'm doing this because it's important to me, and I'm going to continue doing it as much as I can because it's important to me. But if you have some money to spare and nothing to do with it, then feel free to shoot some my way. I'm only planning on making one of these videos where I answer questions on Twitter once a week, so I still have my regular videos. The video about Kazuya versus Hughes is taking a bit longer than I wanted. That might have to be a big video, because the scope of it has grown significantly. So the next video I'm going to make is going to be... who is responsible for theft? I remember that one. That's going to be a good one. So until we get there, do something important and take care of yourselves. Alright?